Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today is Thursday, January 31st, 2019. Today I'm going to recap last night's college basketball, NBA, and NHL games, look ahead to tonight's slate. Was going to do some more Super Bowl props, but there's a lot of news that broke today regarding Bryce Harper, which sent out a tweet regarding Kristaps Porzingis and his concern with the Knicks that I want to get into. NFL mock draft, NBA power rankings, more Anthony Davis talk, and my best bet of the day. All right, let's start with college hoops. Just going to go through results. There is a lot I have to get into, so just going to zoom through these really quickly. Number 10, Marquette defeats Butler 76-58. Florida defeats Ole Miss 90-86 in overtime. Number 12, Virginia Tech defeats Miami 82-70. Number 20, Iowa State defeats West Virginia 93-68. Richmond defeats St. Louis 84-81. Duquesne defeats Rhode Island 75-72. Niagara defeats Canisius 78-70. Maine defeats UMass Lowell 79-58 or 78-59. Albany defeats New Hampshire 62-42. Hartford defeats Binghamton 86-60. Bucknell defeats Navy 69-57. Bradley defeats Evansville 81-73. Gardner-Webb defeats High Point 69-67. Boston University defeats Holy Cross 68-54. LaSalle defeats UMass 60-51. Campbell defeats Radford 68-67. Colgate defeats Army 76-56. American defeats Loyola Maryland 74-68. Rutgers defeats Indiana 66-58. UNC Asheville defeats South Carolina upstate 71-62. Kennesaw State defeats North Florida 81-64. Loyola Chicago defeats Northern Iowa 61-60. Seton Hall defeats Providence 65-63. UMBC defeats Stony Brook 57-49. NJIT defeats Florida Gulf Coast 66-54. Jacksonville defeats Stetson 72-57. Hampton defeats Longwood 96-83. George Washington defeats Fordham 79-61. Purdue Fort Wayne defeats South Dakota 102-71. Charleston Southern defeats Presbyterian 85-84. Middle Tennessee defeats UAB 71-65. Stephen F. Austin defeats Central Arkansas 105-99 in overtime. Number 14, Villanova defeats DePaul 86-74. Number 15, Louisville defeats Lake Forest 82-54. Houston Baptist defeats Incarnate Word 96-92. Syracuse defeats Boston College 77-71. Illinois State defeats Drake 69-55. Lamar defeats Nichols 90-69. Sam Houston State defeats Southeast Louisiana 62-52. Tulsa defeats Memphis 95-79. New Orleans defeats Northwestern State 72-64. Abilene Christian defeats Texas A&M Corpus Christi 78-71. St. John's defeats Creighton 83-67. Lehigh defeats Lafayette 93-86 in overtime. Auburn defeats Missouri 92-58. Number 19 LSU defeats Texas A&M 72-57. Southern Illinois defeats Indiana State 88-73. Utah Valley defeats Cal Baptist 79-62. Minnesota defeats Illinois 86-75. Wichita State defeats SMU 85-83. Fresno State defeats Wyoming 75-62. Utah State defeats San Jose State 103-73. San Diego State defeats Air Force 66-51. UCLA defeats Washington State 87-67. Cal State Fullerton defeats Cal State Northridge 78-71. And Washington defeats USC 75-62. Today's slate, you have at 5 o'clock on ESPNU, LIU Brooklyn at Fairleigh Dickinson. Dickinson is a 4-point favorite at home. NEC games aren't usually aired on the ESPN networks this early in the season, but here we are. Let's go with Dickinson at home. Kent State, Western Michigan was postponed due to the weather. 7 o'clock ESPN2, Temple at number 13, Houston. Houston's favored by 9.5. They need this win. I think they'll get it, but Temple stays within the number. Temple's not a bad team. Number 17, Purdue at Penn State on Fox Sports 1 at 7 o'clock. Purdue's favored by 7. Trap game, yes. Give me Purdue to win, though, but Penn State to cover to 7. Rice at Charlotte. Furman at the Citadel. St. Francis, Brooklyn, Central Connecticut State. St. Francis, Pennsylvania at Robert Morris. St. Peter's at Rider. Yale Monroe at Coastal Carolina. James Madison at Charleston. Fairfield at Manhattan. Sacred Heart at Mount St. Mary's. North Texas at Old Dominion. Drexel at William and Mary. Wofford at Mercer. Towson at UNC Wilmington. Siena at Monmouth. Southern Miss at FIU. Louisiana Appalachian State. Iona Marist. Cleveland State Detroit Mercy. Tulane Eastern Carolina on ESPNU. East Carolina is favored by 5. I think they win and cover. VMI at UNC Greensboro. Louisiana Tech at FAU. ESPN News, Austin Peay at Tennessee Tech. Austin Peay is a 9-point favorite. I think they win and cover. Youngstown State at Oakland, Bryant at Wagner, Delaware at Elon. UTEP at Marshall at 7:30. East Tennessee State at Stanford. UTSA at Western Kentucky at 8. CBS Sports Network, Xavier at Georgetown. Georgetown's a 2.5-point favorite. Georgetown badly needs this win, and I think they'll get it. South Dakota State at Oral Roberts. Morehead State at SAU Edwardsville. Chicago State at Rio Grande. Southeast Missouri State at Belmont. Western Carolina at Chattanooga. Western Illinois hosting North Dakota, postponed due to weather. 8:15 Murray State at Jacksonville State. 8:30 Eastern Kentucky at Eastern Illinois. Tennessee Martin at Tennessee State. 9 o'clock ESPNU. UConn at UCF. UCF's a 7.5-point favorite. I think they win and cover. Pac-12 Network. Oregon State at Colorado. It's a pick'em. I'm going to say Colorado gets it at home. ESPN2, Arizona at Arizona State. State's favored by 5. I think they win and cover. Oregon at Utah on Fox Sports 1. Utah's favored by 2.5. I'm going to say that Oregon, though, is the team that gets the win as an underdog. UMKC at New Mexico State. Sacramento State at Idaho State. Portland State at Weber State. 10 o'clock Cal Poly at UC Riverside. Pepperdine at Portland. 10:30 Pacific at Loyola Marymount. Number 4 Gonzaga at BYU at 11 o'clock on ESPN2. Gonzaga's favored by 14.5. I think they win and cover. And on ESPNU, UC Irvine at Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara's a 1.5 favorite. This is a great game, by the way. These two teams are combined 32-9. This is a tough call. I'm going to take Santa Barbara to get a signature win at home here. And then at 12 o'clock midnight Eastern time, you have Long Beach State at Hawaii. NBA. Just going to go through last night's results and go through today's games. No box scores. The Mavs defeat the Knicks 114-90. Celtics defeat the Hornets 126-94. The Bulls defeat the Heat 105-89. Wizards defeat the Pacers 107-89. The Timberwolves defeat the Grizzlies 99-97 in overtime. Nuggets defeat the Pelicans 105-99. Kings defeat the Hawks 135-113, and the Blazers defeat the Jazz 132-105. Today's slate, a 6-game slate for a Thursday night. That's unusual. 7 o'clock, you have the Mavs at the Pistons, the Pacers at the Magic. 8 o'clock on TNT, the Bucks at the Raptors. The Raptors are a 3-point favorite. The two best teams in the East right now, give me Toronto on home court. Toronto has won, I believe, 2 of the 3 matchups between these two teams so far. Milwaukee won one of them earlier in the year. Toronto killed Milwaukee in Milwaukee a couple months ago. It was a game where Milwaukee played Kawhi Leonard's laugh in the middle of the second quarter, and then Toronto took off from there. And that's when Milwaukee deserved after bad karma by playing Kawhi's laugh. 8:30, the Nets at the Spurs. 10:30, the 76ers at the Warriors. Warriors favored by 9.5. I think Golden State wins, but Philadelphia covers. And 10:30, the Lakers at the Clippers. And no LeBron James. Yeah, that's a huge game for both these teams. I think the winner of this game, in all likelihood, gets the leg up in the playoffs in the West. But you never know. Lakers can win this game and still miss the playoffs, and same for the Clippers. But like I said, you never know. NHL. Only 2 games last night. The Penguins defeated the Lightning 4-2, and the Stars defeated the Sabres 1-0. Tonight's slate, only 3 games. Rangers, Devils, and Flyers, Bruins at 7 o'clock, and at 8 o'clock, the Blue Jackets at the Jets. All right, first I want to talk about the Kristaps Porzingis situation. Knicks, as we all know, are tanking. Adrian Wojnarowski with an unexpected Woj bomb about a half hour ago tweets, in meeting today with management, Knicks forward Kristaps Porzingis expressed his concern with the losing franchise direction and uncertainty that a culture is developing will enable sustainable organizational success. Well, the team's tanking, and the team's tanking because you're hurt. If you were not hurt, the team, who knows, may not be tanking and could be like right where the Wizards are in the standings, or the Miami Heat, or Charlotte, you'd be in that tier instead of where you are right now, which is the worst team in the league, record-wise. And then Woj follows it up. Porzingis wants to play for a winner in New York, but is searching for clarity on his future role with the team in Knicks' direction. Porzingis, obviously out with the ACL injury, could be a restricted free agent this summer. And the Knicks are probably going to match whoever throws an offer sheet at him, because I think the Knicks want to keep him. But this is obviously a huge story. Social media is mocking the Knicks because that's all it ever does, and the thought is that Porzingis wants out. The first tweet made it seem like that Porzingis wanted out, but the second tweet that Woj says wants to play for a winner in New York, but searching for clarity on the future role with the team, that could have to do with the team's interest in Anthony Davis and how Porzingis is rumored to be a part of that package. So, with that said, let's go to our power rankings for the NBA. That goes with trade predictions for every team and what each team is going to do at the deadline. Number 30 is obviously the New York Knicks. They have the worst record in the NBA right now. My prediction for them is that they'll trade Noah Vonleh. 29 is Chicago Bulls. My bold prediction for them is that they trade Jabari Parker. 28, the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think they trade Rodney Hood. 27, the Phoenix Suns. I think they trade Kelly Oubre Jr. after acquiring him for Trevor Ariza. 26, Memphis Grizzlies. Trades Justin Holiday, and the Stars stand pat. The Stars as in Gasol and Conley, because I think the league knows that those two players are past their primes. Or they think that those two players are past their primes. 25 is the Atlanta Hawks. I think they trade Kent Bazemore and Dwayne Dedmon. 24, the New Orleans Pelicans. This is my boldest call. I think they're going to trade Drew Holiday. They know Anthony Davis wants out, and why not just blow up the entire team? 23, the Orlando Magic. I think they trade Terrence Ross. 22, Detroit Pistons. There'll be rumors about Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond being moved, but ultimately the two big men stand pat. 21, the Minnesota Timberwolves. Trades Dario Saric. Number 20, the Charlotte Hornets. Despite heavy Kemba Walker rumors, Kemba stays put, and the team stands pat at the trade deadline. 19, the Miami Heat. I think they trade Wayne Ellington. They're dying to get rid of that guy. 18, the Dallas Mavericks. They want to trade Wes Matthews. I think they will. 17, the Washington Wizards. Despite rumors, Trevor Ariza and Bradley Beal stand pat. 16, the Sacramento Kings. Trades for Justin Holiday. They need a wing player to go with their young core, and Memphis' Justin Holiday would make sense. 15, the Los Angeles Lakers. After being released by the Chicago Bulls, the Lakers will sign Carmelo Anthony. 14, the Indiana Pacers. Trades for Drew Holiday. This team is still in the hunt for the playoffs in the East, despite losing its best player in Victor Oladipo with the ACL injury. I think they want to make a move to at least make their team better, and not just better for this year, but for next year when Oladipo comes back. And I'm going to say they trade for Drew Holiday. And they'd have a backcourt in 2020 of Holiday and Oladipo. 13, the Brooklyn Nets. This is a fun prediction, and it makes sense because Brooklyn's been tending to do this with a lot of high draft busts that turn into actually pretty good players. Like D'Angelo Russell this year is a good example. I'm going to say they trade for Jabari Parker. I don't know what it'll take. Maybe a couple second-round picks. Maybe that's somebody on the roster currently. I don't think it would be Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, but it could be somebody like that could entice Chicago in a trade. Number 12 is the Los Angeles Clippers. After being bought out, after not being able to find a trade, the New York Knicks buy out Enes Kanter, who signs with the Clippers. So my prediction is that the Knicks buy out Canner after failing to find a trade for him, and then the Clippers sign him, and he'd be an upgrade at that position for him. Number 11 is the Utah Jazz. I think they trade for Orlando's Terrence Ross. They need some bench scoring, and Ross would help them. 10, the San Antonio Spurs. I think they stand pat. Not a bad move because that's what the Spurs do every year. 9, the Houston Rockets. Tries to reacquire Trevor Ariza from Washington, but the Wizards ultimately say no, as the Rockets end up standing pat and waiting for Clint Capella to come back. That would be a big mistake for Houston. I think they need to make a trade to improve their chances of winning a championship, but I think Houston is convinced that the team it currently has, when healthy, can win, but I'm not so sure of that. With Chris Paul aging, Eric Gordon's not having a great year, but the Rockets will try to make a trade for Trevor Ariza. I'm going to say Washington says no, and then they'll just end up standing pat. 8, the Boston Celtics. Trades for Dwayne Dedmon. They need another backup big. Dedmon would be a nice fit, and they could even start him at sometimes alongside Al Horford. I just think that's a nice fit. 7, the Portland Trailblazers. By the way, shouts to them. That was an excellent performance on national TV last night against the Jazz. I think they trade for Kent Bazemore. They need a bench piece. Bazemore would help them. 6, the Denver Nuggets. I think they trade for Miami's Wayne Ellington, like Portland. They need a bench piece. Ellington would help them. 5, Philadelphia 76ers. They trade a second rounder for New York's Noah Vonleh. They need a backup big. Vonleh would help them. It'd be him and Mike Muscala as their backup bigs, which isn't bad. 4, Oklahoma City Thunder. I think they stand pat, and that's not a bad move because the breakout of Terrence Ferguson has really helped this team in a major way. Yeah, they can use another combo forward that would be alongside and could play in crunch time perhaps, but the foursome of Ferguson, Westbrook, George, and Adams, that's a nice crunch time lineup. But they could use somebody in the combo forward spot or a wing and move Paul George to power forward, but George is better off as a wing than a power forward. 3, the Toronto Raptors. I think that they wait for somebody to come off the buyout market who they end up signing. I don't know who that could be. Maybe it's a wing, maybe it's a big, but I think they'll sign someone on the buyout market. Number 2, the Milwaukee Bucks. Trades Thon Maker and a second-round pick to the Chicago Bulls for Robin Lopez. Lopez is very available. His contract doesn't look as good as it once did, but the thought of the Lopez brothers on the same team is fun. That's why I'm predicting that. And number 1, the Golden State Warriors, I think, like Toronto, will sign somebody off the buyout market. That's what Golden State should do, and that's what I think they will do. Next up, Anthony Davis. The New Orleans Pelicans removed him from their pregame intro. Is that a sign that he's soon to be out the door? Maybe. But I want to mention that because to me that's a undertold story and could be a sign of a possible trade. And then the other thing regarding Anthony Davis that I want to talk about is that Dell Demps isn't taking phone calls from the Lakers. That's ridiculous. The Lakers want you more than anything, and you just don't want to trade him to the most popular franchise in the NBA. And, yeah, they are dying to wait for Boston. Duh. Who doesn't want to trade with Boston with all the good assets they have? There are a lot of changes in this one. This is my 4th mock draft I've done. And these change all the time, but this one has made the biggest change so far. I have a new number 1. I have the Arizona Cardinals selecting Quinnen Williams, the defensive tackle of Alabama. I had Nick Bosa penciled in the spot for the first 3 mock drafts, but the more I think about it, the more Williams makes sense. The Cards already have Chandler Jones as an edge rusher and have a bigger need in the interior, which makes Williams a great fit. 2, San Francisco 49ers. Nick Bosa, defensive end, Ohio State. Getting the best player in the draft is always a win for whomever drafts the player. Bosa would be an upgrade over any of the pass rushers currently on the Niners roster, and he would have an immediate impact like Myles Garrett did a few years back with the Browns. 3, the New York Jets. Josh Allen, defensive end, outside linebacker, Kentucky. Allen is the one player that was the huge riser from the summer until now. The Jets have a need for immediate impact talent and versatility on the defensive side of the ball, and Allen would be a great fit. 4, the Oakland Raiders. Rashawn Gary, defensive end, Michigan. The Raiders begin to build their pass rush by selecting Gary, who really didn't live up to his number 1 overall prospect ranking he was given in high school. If Gary produces in the pros, this will turn out to be a great selection as they would finally replace Khalil Mack. 5, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Ed Oliver, defensive tackle, Houston. Oliver was once projected as a consensus top 5 pick before the season, and then his stock dropped dramatically due to injuries and not playing up to expectations. Oliver is versatile, and he can replace Gerald McCoy on the defense long term. 6, New York Giants. Dwayne Haskins, quarterback, Ohio State. Eli Manning's days of being a good starting quarterback in the league are over, and his future is uncertain at this point. Haskins handing the ball off to Saquon Barkley and throwing it to Odell Beckham Jr. would only jumpstart his career, and it would be fun to watch. 7, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Kyler Murray, quarterback, Oklahoma. The Blake Bortles experiment in Jacksonville should be over, as Tom Coughlin is regretting paying him last offseason. Murray recently declared to the NFL draft instead of going to baseball, and despite his height, he just won the Heisman Trophy. And look at how his precedor, Baker Mayfield, succeeded as a rookie in the league. 8, Detroit Lions. Montez Sweat, defensive end, Mississippi State. Some might feel that this is a reach, but Sweat's stock has risen recently after a good Senior Bowl. Sweat posted double-digit sack seasons 2 years in a row, and he's a solid run defender, too. The Lions also need to possibly replace Ziggy Ansah, which makes this pick an important one. 9, Buffalo Bills. Jonah Williams, offensive tackle, Alabama. Williams falling this far would be a massive steal for a team that needs help on the offensive line. He is the best lineman in the draft, and he'll be Josh Allen's left tackle for years to come. 10, Denver Broncos. Drew Lock, quarterback, Missouri. With Case Keenum's future uncertain in 2019, the Broncos take perhaps their future franchise quarterback in Lock, whose stock has risen with a strong finish to his season and has a very strong arm. Lock could be in a situation like Patrick Mahomes was a few years ago with the Chiefs, in which they played Alex Smith, and then they got rid of Smith, and then Mahomes became the full-time starter. 11, Cincinnati Bengals. Devin White, linebacker, LSU. White was the best linebacker in the country this past season, and he'd be a fine selection. Vontaze Burfict is injury-prone nowadays, and Preston Brown is a free agent, so White would provide some energy to an aging Bengals defense. 12, Green Bay Packers. Jeffrey Simmons, defensive tackle, Mississippi State. The Packers need more help on the defensive side of the ball, and an area they have to address is the interior line. Muhammad Wilkerson can walk as a free agent, and Simmons will be a fine replacement. 13, Miami Dolphins. Greedy Williams, cornerback, LSU. A player of Williams' caliber should not drop this far, as the Dolphins snag him in mid-first round. He would join Minkah Fitzpatrick as another building block in that secondary. 14, Atlanta Falcons. Christian Wilkins, defensive tackle, Clemson. Dabo Swinney has 3 great defensive linemen who project to go in the first round. Wilkins could be an immediate starter for Dan Quinn, and he could replace free agent Gardy Jarrett on the defensive line. 15, Washington Redskins. Jachai Polite, defensive end, outside linebacker, Florida. Polite is someone coming off a breakthrough year in college, and his draft stock rose in light of it. The Redskins can use some high upside players on their pass rush, although a quarterback is the bigger need. 16, the Carolina Panthers. Andre Dillard, offensive tackle, Washington State. Dillard is one of the biggest risers thanks to a strong showing at the Senior Bowl. The Panthers need to shore up Cam Newton's blind side, and Dillard would be a fine selection. 17, the Cleveland Browns. DK Metcalf, wide receiver, Ole Miss. The Browns suddenly look like a team that is clearly on the come. An offensive lineman is the wiser choice, but Baker Mayfield can use another reliable wideout other than Jarvis Landry, and Metcalf could be that. 18, the Minnesota Vikings. Cody Ford, offensive tackle, Oklahoma. The Vikings were arguably the league's most disappointing team this past season, and their biggest issue was protecting Kirk Cousins. Ford would at least help the Vikings' offensive line and find holes for Dalvin Cook. 19, the Tennessee Titans. Marquise Brown, wide receiver, Oklahoma. The Titans are a team that needs playmakers on offense, in particular a receiver. Brown would be a nice piece for the offense and gives Marcus Mariota a nice weapon to throw to. 20, Pittsburgh Steelers. Byron Murphy, cornerback, Washington. Murphy falling this far would be a pretty big steal for the Steelers. Yes, the receiver is probably the bigger need, with Antonio Brown likely to be traded or released, but they do need more secondary depth, and Murphy would be a good fit. 21, the Seattle Seahawks. Deontay Thompson, safety, Alabama. Thompson would be a steal dropping this far. Legion of Boom is gone in the Emerald City, and drafting the best safety in the draft would be great for Pete Carroll's young secondary. 22, the Baltimore Ravens. K'Neal Harry, wide receiver, Arizona State. Harry is someone who could wind up a steal from this spot. This would be a nice weapon for Lamar Jackson, who needs a downfield threat guy to help his development. 23, the Houston Texans. Jawan Taylor, offensive tackle, Florida. Cornerback is another Texans need, but Deshaun Watson badly needs protection, and Taylor would help the problem. The Texans have the worst offensive line perhaps in the sport, and that should be the team's top priority this offseason. 24, the Oakland Raiders from the Chicago Bears. DeAndre Baker, cornerback, Georgia. The Raiders have a ton of young players, and none of them have panned out yet, and I mean that in their secondary. Baker is one of the best three corners in the draft, which makes this a fine selection by John Gruden and Mike Maycock. 25, the Philadelphia Eagles. Dexter Lawrence, defensive tackle, Clemson. 3 Clemson players are expected to go in the first round, and Lawrence could wind up the best of the trio. He reminds me of current Eagle Fletcher Cox, and the thought of those two on the interior together is scary. 26, the Indianapolis Colts. Jerry Tillery, defensive tackle, Notre Dame. The Colts found 2 foundational pieces in last year's draft. Tillery is someone whose stock has risen after a good Senior Bowl and is steady, that has versatility, and would make their defensive line stronger. 27, the Oakland Raiders from the Dallas Cowboys. Josh Jacobs, running back, Alabama. The Raiders' offense playmakers are aging, and Jacobs would be a solid fit. He draws comparisons to Alvin Kamara, and he would be an upgrade over Doug Martin and Marshawn Lynch. 28, the Los Angeles Chargers. Greg Little, offensive tackle, Ole Miss. Phillip Rivers has shown zero signs of decline of late, and some protection on the offensive line would be smart with some of that unit aging. A defensive player would have been a wiser choice, but Little would be a good choice too. 29, the Kansas City Chiefs. Trayvon Mullen, cornerback, Clemson. Mullen is a fast riser as of right now and addresses arguably the Chiefs' biggest need. The Chiefs' secondary was exposed against the Patriots, and Mullen would be an upgrade. 30, the Green Bay Packers from the New Orleans Saints. Noah Fant, tight end, Iowa. Jimmy Graham isn't the same player he once was in New Orleans, so the Packers should snag the best tight end in this draft class in Fant. He is very athletic, and he can have a similar impact as Dallas Goedert did as a rookie last year with the Eagles. 31, New England Patriots. Clelin Ferrell, defensive end, Clemson. The Patriots pass on a quarterback for a day one starter who would prove to be a massive steal in this spot. Ferrell is a pass rusher worth passing up on a quarterback for. 32, the Los Angeles Rams. Nasir Adderley, safety, Delaware. Adderley is a fast riser thanks to a strong showing at the Senior Bowl. The Rams may have a need at safety if LaMarcus Joyner departs in free agency, and Adderley could be worth the shot here. That's it for the mock draft, and that's it for the podcast today. I'll be back tomorrow recapping everything from college basketball, NBA, and NHL, any more news that breaks in the world of sports. And before I go, I'll do my best bet, and that's brought to you by FanDuel. Not a humongous one tonight in terms of best bet. You have Charleston, UNT Greensboro, South Dakota State, New Mexico State, Gonzaga, the Spurs, the Warriors, and in soccer, Aris. About 1.5 to 1 odds, wagered $1 with a payout of $2.52. And I hope you guys have a great day, everybody.